The ground trembled beneath heavy steps as shadows stretched long across the ancient plain. Herds of Camptosaurus lifted their heads in silence, their tails twitching with fear. The air carried a scent of danger sharp and undeniable. From the tree line a figure emerged tall and relentless. Allosaurus walked with power, its jaws edged in bone, its eyes fixed on the herd. It did not hurry, for fear already traveled faster than speed. The world seemed to hold its breath. In that moment, survival hung thin, and the strike of the predator was only a heartbeat away. The land of the late Jurassic stretched wide beneath an endless sky. Rolling plains of ferns covered the ground, broken by groves of towering conifers. Rivers carved silver paths through the valley, and in the distance low hills shimmered in the heat. The air was heavy with the hum of insects and the calls of small reptiles that darted between rocks. Yet beneath the calm lay a tension that every creature could feel. This was a world ruled by giants, where every step could be a beginning or an end. At the edge of the forest, a shadow moved. It was slow, deliberate, and filled with purpose. The figure stepped into the open light, revealing the form of a predator that had ruled the land for ages. Allosaurus stood tall, its body balanced with powerful legs, and a tail that swayed like a counterweight. Its head was broad, lined with sharp teeth that glistened when it opened its mouth to taste the air. Scars ran across its hide, each mark a memory of a battle fought and survived. This was no young hunter, learning the ways of survival. This was a master predator shaped by hunger and blood. The herd of Camptosaurus grazed near the river, unaware of how closely danger watched them. Their heads lowered to tear at soft plants, while their ears flicked at the distant sounds of the forest. A few lifted their heads, sensing something they could not name. The breeze shifted, carrying the faint musk of predator across the grassland. One young Camptosaurus chirped a warning, but the herd settled again. The danger seemed far, yet the rhythm of the land had already changed. Allosaurus lowered its body, moving closer. Its muscles rippled beneath the skin, each step pressed carefully against the earth to avoid alarm. The predator's eyes gleamed with hunger, but there was patience within them. It did not need to rush. A single mistake could send the herd scattering and end the chance for a meal. This was a way of survival where silence could be as sharp as teeth. The sun climbed higher, warming the valley. From the forest line came the heavy calls of Diplodocus, herds moving through the trees. Their bodies were mountains swaying with slow rhythm, their tails cracking like thunder when disturbed. Smaller ornitholestes scurried in packs, searching for insects and eggs. High in the sky, pterosaurs wheeled their wings, catching the wind. Life filled every corner of the land, yet the shadow of Allosaurus was the pulse that controlled it. It had not eaten in days. Its body demanded fuel, and every heartbeat pushed the hunger deeper. The predator's tongue flicked against its teeth, tasting the air again. The Camptosaurus herd remained by the river, their tails brushing the ground as they drank and grazed. Allosaurus studied them with the precision of a hunter that had chosen prey 1,000 times before. Weakness would decide the target, not desire. The young, the slow, the distracted, these were the ones that fell first. Far across the plain, another sound rolled like distant thunder. A rival called its presence. The deep roar of another Allosaurus echoed against the cliffs and carried across the valley. The predator paused, raising its head to listen. The sound was familiar, filled with challenge and warning. This land was not ruled by one alone. The rival was out there searching, marking territory with its voice. For now the valley was wide enough for both, but every call was a reminder that balance could break with one misstep. Allosaurus did not retreat. Its place was earned, not given. It turned its gaze back to the herd, its hunger stronger than the memory of rivalry. The sun burned against its back as it crouched low near the brush. A young Camptosaurus strayed further from the group, dipping its head into the river. The moment ripened, and the hunter shifted its weight. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the birds above grew quiet. Allosaurus waited motionless, its tail balancing its massive frame. The hunt would begin soon, but not with a rush of thoughtless fury. It would begin with patience, with the silence of the earth before the storm. This was life in the valley. For the herds, it was the endless search for food and water. For the predator, it was the endless search for prey and dominance. Each day was measured by survival, and each night echoed with roars that reminded the land who ruled its heart. The Allosaurus stood not just as a hunter, but as a force of the Jurassic age. Its presence shaped the movements of herds. Its shadow drew fear into every smaller predator. Its roar shook the stillness of night. To live in its world was to live beneath a ruler whose throne was built on hunger. And as the valley shimmered under the midday sun, the story of predator and prey prepared to unfold once more. The sun rolled across the sky, and shadows shifted over the valley. Time in the Jurassic land did not flow with calm rhythm, but with the urgency of survival. For Allosaurus, each passing hour was a measure of strength or weakness. Its body grew leaner with each day without food. Muscle still held power, but hunger gnawed deeper than wounds. The scent of prey was everywhere, yet to catch it was another matter. The Cambosaurus herd had moved deeper along the river. They traveled in groups, always alert to the silent danger that stalked them. Allosaurus had followed at a distance, waiting for a mistake. Once the herd scattered at a sudden crack of branches, but no kill was made. Once a young strayed near the trees, but the herd circled quickly, their tails raised in defense. Patience was tested, but the hunter knew a rush strike could end in failure. For 3 days the hunt continued with no success. The river kept the herd strong. They drank and fed with little sign of weakness. Hunger carved sharp lines into the body of the predator, yet its eyes never lost focus. It had endured worse. Every scar on its body spoke of storm-survived battles won and hunts that stretched longer than hunger itself. On the 4th day, clouds gathered over the valley. The wind shifted colder, carrying the scent of rain and distant thunder. The land grew restless, as if the storm had stirred every creature. Herds moved faster to find cover, while smaller hunters vanished into the trees. The air was heavy, thick, with a promise of violence. Allosaurus moved with the storm, its senses sharpened by the tension of the land. Near the edge of the plain, a group of Stegosaurus fed on low plants, their heavy plates glowing in the dim light. They were larger, slower, and far more dangerous than Camptosaurus. Their tails, armed with deadly spikes, could shatter bone with a single strike. To hunt them was risk, yet hunger pressed like fire against a predator's chest. It circled at a distance, studying them. A young Stegosaurus trailed behind the group, distracted as it tore at ferns. Allosaurus lowered its body, moving closer step by step. The storm cracked above, a flash of light, splitting the sky. The herd stirred, raising their heads. In that flash, the predator lunged. The ground shook with the force of the strike. The young Stegosaurus bleated in alarm as jaws closed around its side. The herd roared, and tails swung like hammers. One spike missed the predator's leg by a breath. Another cut across its flank, tearing flesh. Blood sprayed, but hunger drove deeper. The young thrashed, and the predator locked its jaws tighter, pulling with raw strength. The storm burst, open rain pouring across the valley. Thunder rolled, and lightning tore the sky as predator and prey clashed. Finally, with a violent shake, the young Stegosaurus collapsed. The herd circled once more, then broke apart, retreating into the storm. Allosaurus stood over the fallen body, its chest heaving. Blood mixed with rainwater flowed across its scars. Pain burned, but the victory was real. For the first time in days, the predator fed. Its jaws tore flesh and muscle, its body renewed with every bite. The storm raged around, yet within the storm a new balance returned. Hunger eased, though not gone for long. The cycle of survival never ended, but each kill carved another day of dominance. Yet victory carried cost. The wounds on its flank burned with every movement. Infection was a silent enemy, as dangerous as any rival. Allosaurus rested near the kill, watching the valley through rain. Scavengers gathered at the edges, waiting for a chance. Ornitholestes circled, their eyes glowing in the stormlight. Pterosaurs descended from the sky, their wings beating heavy air, but none dared move close. The predator's presence was command enough. When the storm passed, the valley glistened with fresh rivers and soaked earth. Herds moved carefully across slippery ground. The smell of wet plants filled the air, mixed with the iron tang of blood. For days, Allosaurus fed and recovered. Its strength returned, though its wounds healed slow. The valley remembered the clash and the roar that followed the kill. But peace was fragile. On the 7th night, a sound cut through the stillness. A roar deep and long answered by the cliffs. The rival had returned. Its voice carried strength and challenge. Allosaurus lifted its head from rest, listening. The call was close, not distant. Territory lines had been crossed. The next day, tracks marked the soft mud near the river, heavy steps larger than those of the herds. Claw marks dug into the earth, showing weight and power. Allosaurus followed them, its body tense. The scent of predator filled the air, sharp and undeniable. The rival was near. At midday, the two met across the open plain. The rival was massive, broad, shouldered with scars that mirrored those of its challenger. Their eyes locked across the distance. The herds nearby froze, sensing the storm of violence that hung between them. Each step forward was a drumbeat of ancient war. They circled at first, testing with growls and snaps of jaws. Dust rose around them in the hot wind. The rival lunged, first teeth snapping at the neck. Allosaurus turned with speed, ramming its skull into the side. Flesh tore, blood sprayed the air, filled with the sound of rage. The valley watched as two kings clashed for right of rule. The fight stretched with no quick victory. Each strike left marks, each roar shook the land. Small predators fled, the area's scavengers waited at a distance, ready to feed on whichever body fell. The herds moved far away, but even at distance they watched with wary eyes. For the outcome of this battle would decide the rhythm of their survival. As the sun sank, the fight broke apart for a moment. Both predators stood, heaving, their bodies cut and torn. Their eyes burned with fury, but within that fire lay respect. Each had survived storms, each had taken prey, each had earned scars. The valley was not wide enough for both, yet the land itself seemed to demand one to rise above. Allosaurus lifted its head, roaring long and deep. The rival answered, stepping forward with jaws wide. The next clash would not be a test. It would be final. The valley held its breath. The climax of the storm of flesh and bone was near. The plain shimmered with heat as the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the land. The air carried the weight of silence, broken only by the hiss of insects and the distant calls of frightened herds. Two predators stood locked in an ancient ritual of survival. Allosaurus faced its rival, eyes burning with hunger and fury. Each scar upon their bodies told stories of battles fought, storms endured, victories seized, and losses endured. This moment was not merely about territory or prey. It was about rule. The valley demanded one master. The rival stepped forward, its muscles rippling with raw strength. Its roar split the air, shaking the ground beneath. Allosaurus lowered its head, lips curled back to reveal teeth sharpened by endless kills. The sound that left its throat was not just noise, but the voice of survival, the memory of 1,000 hunts. Dust swirled between them, carried on a hot wind, as if the earth itself prepared to witness the outcome. The rival lunged, first jaws wide, snapping toward the neck. Allosaurus shifted with speed surprising for its size. Its skull rammed into the rival's side, sending a shudder through bone and flesh. Teeth scraped hide, leaving deep marks. Blood sprayed into the air, painting the ground dark. The rival roared in pain, but answered with a strike of its claws that raked across Allosaurus's shoulder, tearing flesh. Both predators staggered, then lunged again. The clash was brutal and without pause. Jaws locked around necks, tails lashed like whips, claws dug into flesh. The ground shook beneath their weight as they slammed against each other. Birds took to the sky in panic. Herds scattered across the plain, yet many paused at distance, watching the storm of giants with wide eyes. Each roar was thunder, each strike a quake. The rival forced Allosaurus back toward a ridge, its teeth sinking into the flank. Pain seared through flesh, yet the predator did not yield. With a violent twist, it slammed its head upward, tearing free and leaving deep gashes across the rival's jaw. The rival stumbled, blood pouring down its neck, but its fury only grew. It charged again, striking with its body like a living boulder. Both predators crashed to the ground in a storm of dust and claws. The fight rolled across the plain, each movement a blur of survival. Allosaurus struck at the throat, but the rival blocked with a swing of its massive head. The rival lunged to the leg, but Allosaurus pulled away with strength that shook the earth. Blood covered the ground, soaking into the soil, marking the plain with the price of dominance. The battle seemed endless, yet time in such moments slowed. Every second stretched into eternity. The valley echoed with roars that carried far beyond its borders. Even distant predators heard and knew a great struggle was unfolding. The scavengers gathered at the edges, their eyes glowing with hunger for whichever body fell. The rival gained ground, pushing Allosaurus toward a fallen tree. Its jaws snapped inches from the throat. One more strike could end it. But Allosaurus was not a creature shaped by weakness. It was shaped by storms and fire. With a surge of strength, it swung its skull forward, ramming into the rival's ribs. A crack split the air as bone shattered. The rival stumbled, its breath faltering. Allosaurus seized a moment, its jaws locked around the base of the rival's neck, teeth sinking deep into flesh. The rival thrashed, tail whipping across the predator's side, but the hold did not break. Allosaurus shook its head violently, tearing muscle from bone. The rival roared a sound filled with fury and despair. Blood poured across the ground, dark and steaming. The rival's strength faltered, its legs buckling beneath its weight. Still it fought, refusing to fall. It lashed again, claws raking across the predator's back, leaving new wounds. Pain burned, yet Allosaurus did not release. It pressed harder, driving its weight forward, forcing the rival onto the ground. Dust rose around them in a choking cloud. The rival's roars weakened. Its tail struck slower, its claws scraped without force. Allosaurus tightened its jaws, feeling the life drain beneath. With one final violent shake, the rival collapsed. Its body struck the ground with thunder that rolled across the plain. Silence followed, broken only by the heavy breath of the victor. Allosaurus stood over the fallen body, blood dripping from its teeth, its chest heaving with exhaustion. Its own body was torn with deep wounds, blood soaking into the soil. Yet it remained standing. The rival lay still, its eyes glazed, its body motionless. The battle was over. The valley had chosen its ruler. The scavengers hesitated, then began to creep closer, their hunger daring to test the presence of the living predator. Allosaurus turned its head slowly, eyes glowing with raw fire. A low growl rumbled from its chest, and the scavengers froze. Even with blood pouring from its wounds, its dominance was unbroken. None dared challenge. The herds that had fled now watched from distance. The outcome was clear. The roar of Allosaurus had claimed the plain, and its shadow stretched long across the valley. It had survived the storm, endured the pain, and crushed the rival. The land itself seemed to bow to its presence. The predator raised its head to the sky and roared. The sound rolled across the hills, echoed against cliffs, and filled the air with power. It was a roar of triumph, of dominance, of survival. Every creature heard, and every heart trembled. The valley had one ruler, and that ruler had been forged in blood. The sun slipped lower, painting the sky red, as if the heavens themselves bore witness to clash. The plain lay scarred with marks of the battle blood, soaking the soil, dust still hanging in the air. Allosaurus stood over its fallen rival, a silhouette against the fire of the horizon. Its body burned with pain, yet within that pain was victory. The fight had ended, but its memory would not fade. The scars would remain, the valley would remember the roars, and the herds would never forget the shadow that ruled. The plain was quiet again, yet it was not the silence of peace, but the silence that followed chaos. Dust settled over the battlefield, softening the jagged lines carved by the clash of giants. Blood darkened the soil in wide pools, feeding the flies that swarmed above. The body of the fallen rival lay still, its massive frame sprawled across the earth, a reminder of the price of dominance. Allosaurus stood nearby, its chest rising and falling with effort. Deep wounds burned across its flank, shoulder, and back. Blood still dripped from fresh cuts, but the predator remained upright. Pain was sharp, but pain was not unfamiliar. It had lived through storms of hunger and scars that nearly broke its body. Survival was written in every line of its hide. The scavengers drew closer now that the dust had settled. Ornitholestes crept along the edges, their eyes darting between the corpse and the victor. Pterosaurs wheeled above, their shadows gliding over the battlefield as they prepared to descend. A group of small lizards scuttled from the brush, tasting the blood with flicks of their tongues. The scent of death was a call that none could ignore. Yet the victor was still alive. Allosaurus turned its head slowly, its golden eyes narrowing. A low growl rumbled from deep within its chest. The sound rolled across the ground, heavy with threat. The scavengers froze in place, their hunger checked by fear. The fallen rival was food, but to claim it while the ruler still stood was to court death. Allosaurus limped forward to the body. Its jaws lowered and tore a strip of flesh from the rival's side. The meat was rich with blood and strength. Each bite renewed the body that had been drained by battle. It fed with slow, measured movements, its eyes never leaving the circling scavengers. The message was clear. This kill belonged to it. The herds had moved far into the distance during the fight, yet they had not forgotten. Camptosaurus grazed with caution, their heads lifting often to scan the plain. Stegosaurus kept their tails raised though the danger had passed. Even the long-necked Diplodocus herds shifted uneasily as they felt the echo of the roars that had shaken the land. Every creature in the valley understood that a line had been drawn in blood. As the day faded into night, the stars rose and the sky washed clear by the storm of battle. The rival's body became a dark mountain under the pale light. The plain smelled of iron and decay. Allosaurus rested near its fallen enemy, its massive form lying against the cooling earth. Sleep came in shallow waves broken by the sting of wounds, and the calls of scavengers kept at bay. By morning the plain stirred with new life. Pterosaurs descended in larger numbers, their cries sharp as they circled above. Packs of scavengers paced at the edges, emboldened by the passing hours. Allosaurus rose slowly, its body stiff with pain, but still filled with strength. It tore another strip of flesh from the rival, then stepped back, its belly heavy with meat. Hunger had been sated, but the body was too broken to remain near the corpse for long. To linger was to invite endless challenges from scavengers that gathered in growing numbers. With heavy steps it moved away from the plain. The herd scattered as it passed, but no strike followed. The predator's mind was not on the chase. Survival now meant healing. Each step carried the ache of wounds, yet each step also carried the weight of triumph. The valley had heard the roars. The land had seen the fall of the rival. That memory would linger long after the blood dried. Days passed as Allosaurus moved slowly through the valley. It rested in the shade of conifer forests and drank deeply from clear streams. It hunted small prey to keep strength, but avoided great battles. The wounds closed scar tissue, forming new marks upon its body. Each scar was a story etched in to hide a tale of defiance and survival. The scavengers feasted on the rival's corpse until nothing but bones remained. The plain became a grave marked by scattered remains. Yet even there the memory of the battle lingered. Herds crossed the plain with caution, lifting their heads, as if listening for the echo of roars that had long faded. The ground itself seemed to remember. Seasons shifted and the valley changed with them. Rain returned, filling rivers and turning plains green. Herds flourished, once more feeding on the abundance. Life moved in endless cycles, yet one truth remained unshaken. Allosaurus was still the shadow that ruled. Its presence bent the rhythm of every creature. Its roar still split the night, reminding all who listened that the throne of the valley was not empty. The rival had fallen, but new challengers would rise. That was the law of the land. Yet for now the predator stood unmatched. It had endured hunger storms, battle, and pain. Its body was a map of scars, yet within those scars burned the fire of life. The valley belonged to it, because it had claimed it with blood. In the quiet of evening, Allosaurus returned to the ridge that overlooked the river. From there it watched the herds move across the plain, their bodies glowing in the fading light. The wind carried the scent of life across the land. The predator's chest rose steady, its eyes unblinking. It had fought and bled and survived. It had carved its place into the heart of the Jurassic world. The valley was not peaceful, yet it was balanced. Every creature moved with awareness of the shadow upon the ridge. Every heartbeat of the land answered to that presence. The story of dominance was not finished. It never truly ended. But for now the balance leaned toward one ruler, one survivor, one predator whose roar had shaken the earth. Allosaurus had earned its place. The sun slid toward the horizon, painting the valley in fire and gold. Shadows stretched across the plain, and the air grew cooler as the day surrendered to night. Herds moved slowly toward the river, their bodies swaying in rhythm with the fading light. Birds wheeled above their wings, glowing against the burning sky. The land seemed calm, yet beneath that calm was memory. The memory of roars that split the air and the battle that had shaken the ground. On the ridge, Allosaurus stood once more. Its silhouette was dark against the blaze of the setting sun. Scars mapped its hide, each mark a reminder of hunger storms and battles endured. Its body bore the weight of countless struggles, yet its stance was unbroken. The predator looked across the valley with steady eyes that had seen life rise and fall with each season. Below the ridge, the herds grazed without panic. They lifted their heads often to watch, but they did not scatter. They had learned the rhythm of the land. They lived under the shadow of the predator, yet within that shadow lay balance. Allosaurus did not strike without purpose. Its hunger drove the cycle of survival, but its presence gave the valley order. The wind shifted, carrying scents of water, prey of distant storms. Allosaurus lifted its head, tasting the air. Hunger stirred as it always would, but there was no rush. It had survived longer than rivals, endured more than storms. Each scar was proof of resilience, each roar claimed a legacy. As the sun sank lower, the predator opened its jaws. A roar rolled from its chest, deep and powerful, shaking the stillness. The sound spread across the valley, echoed through the cliffs, and reached the farthest herds. It was a voice of dominance, of memory, of eternal survival. Every creature paused, their hearts trembling at the reminder of who ruled. The roar faded, but its echo lingered as the first stars appeared. Allosaurus turned from the ridge and stepped into the shadowed forest, its massive form swallowed by night. The valley breathed under its watch, and the story of survival lived on. The ruler had spoken, and the land remembered.